Welcome! This is Sophie, the food blogger behind A Kitchen in Uganda, and what you're listening to is our new podcast called Our Food Stories, a podcast where we as a community share food stories from our past that have raised and sustained our ancestors and eventually ourselves. Episode 8. You enjoyed listening to part 1 of a recollection of Buganda's finest culinary treasures. We are continuing the story with the second and last part from Enid. Enjoy!
Uganda loves matoke. I will tell you that. We love matoke. My mom always says her food is not complete unless it has matoke and nakati, that's matoke and greens. Let me tell you my favorite breakfast ever up to now. Favorites, actually, there's two. My favorite thing to have for breakfast is fried cassava. I love fried cassava, and I like it to be boiled first and then it is deep fried. That is how I love it, because it has those like crunches on the side, on the outside. I love those. So cassava, fried cassava, or kabalagala. Kabalagala is what we call pancakes. That's our version of pancakes. So kabalagala is pretty much cassava flour, which in most places it's called tapioca. Cassava flour and a small type of ripe bananas. So they put them together. They add the bananas are ripe, so that's what gives the kabalagala their sweetness. And they add baking powder. I was going to say baking soda. Then they put baking powder and then they deep fry them. It is heavenly, and I love mine spicy. I love my kabalagala spicy. That's how I love it. So kabalagala and fried cassava and chai mukalu, you have me, as in that is me. That is, you've made my morning, and the rest of my day is going to be great. Chai mukalu is pretty much black tea with tea masala. For me, that's how I like it. If there's no tea masala, then I just like my black tea with mudalasini. Mudalasini is cinnamon, and tangawizi. Tangawizi is ginger. Tea masala is just like it's a mixture of different spices. Do you know there's some other thing called namungodi? I don't see it anymore. So namungodi was or is a pastry filled with rice. The rice is cooked first, and then it's put in the pastry filling, and then you put rice in it. Then you roll it and then you deep fry it. That is namongodi. That is my favorite after fried cassava and kabalagala. And I haven't had namongodi in a long time, but every time I think about it, my mouth waters. So those are some of our foods. Back to our eating practices. At my parents' home, though, we used to just eat bread and eggs for breakfast, and that was it. That's why I don't like bread too much these days. Like, I am just over bread. I am over cake, because we used to have bread and cake for breakfast all the time. And I just loved katogo when I used to go to my grandparents, because then we'd all sit together, then we'd all tell stories. You know, the kids would talk about how they're going to play after they eat, and after we ate, we used to like do the kids were in charge of doing the dishes, and then after you go and play or do whatever it is you had to do that day. So those were some of like our practices. These days, for dinner I love to eat posho and biringanya, eggplant, and tula. I think people call bitter tomatoes. I love those two mixed together, and posho. Oh, that is so good. So some of my favorite fruits, I would say, would be empafu. Empafu is it's like a black, larger kind of grape, but it's salty, and you eat only the outside. I love jambula. Now jambula is actually more like a grapes. I love jambula. I love amatugunda. I don't know how to explain amatugunda. I don't even know what it's called in English. Then I love raw mangoes. You know how people love ripe mangoes? I love salt. I have a palate for salt. I love salty foods. So I love raw mangoes, so I could just put salt and curry powder on them. I don't know if anybody else still does that. There's also something called amatungulu, which is red, and it has like a white. Don't confuse it with butungulu. Butungulu is onions. Now amatungulu is like it's salty too, and it has like black seeds. It has this tangy kind of taste. You can't eat too much of it. I don't anyway. So those are pretty much our foods. My foods growing up. That's what I used to love to eat. And then we used to drink omobisi. Omobisi is pretty much made from a different type of small bananas, and they're called embide. So they would get this embide, and they would mix it with elephant grass or esubi, and then they'll try to mash it. So when they mash it, it brings out a juice, and that juice is what was called omobisi. They used to put other stuff in it. I don't remember what it was. I don't see much of it anymore, but I miss omobisi. And of course butunda plus oranges. Those were like our things as Baganda. That's how we grew up, eating together, together. And then there's this one time I went to my aunt's place and they had prepared the matoke. Remember how I told you how they prepare the matoke? But then they were serving it on the banana leaf, the matoke itself. So they would cut off part of the banana leaf that was used to wrap the matoke, and they would place it in front of you on a kawempe. I don't know what buempe are made of actually. I just remembered as I was talking about that, on a kawempe. So they'd put like a banana leaf before you, then they would use a banana leaf as well to dig out the matoke, place it on the banana leaf before you. I think it's called a kawuwa. A kawuwa is a banana leaf, but one that has been cooked. Well, that has been used to prepare the matoke pretty much. You know how I said that you wrap the matoke, the green banana leaves around the matoke themselves. So as the food cooks, as the matoke steams, this banana leaves gets a bit softer but tougher and green, like a darker green. So that is a kawuwa. So when they're serving, they cut off part of the kawuwa, they place it in front of you, and then they'll put your serving of matoke on the kawuwa, and then your sauce would be put in front of you separate. Bugandas like to serve sauces and the carbohydrates, I guess, separate. They don't like to mix stuff. It's just kind of seen like a way of respect of serving people. And you would find that when you had visitors over, when you're serving like an older person, they would serve their food separate. They would bring a bowl of sauce, and then they'd bring a bowl of like whatever carbohydrate you are having, like matoke or rice or whatever it was. And it was up to the person to decide whether to mix the foods together or to still eat them separately, like get the matoke and then dip it in the sauce. And for kids, they usually just used to bring, they didn't care about us. They used to just put our food together. We're not special to have our food separated because we're kids, you know. So that's how they serve the food. So back to the kawuwa story of the matoke banana leaf. So that's how you used to eat the food. And the way it was, you'd all sit in a circle, or even just together. It doesn't have to be in a circle, but just seated around the actual muwombo. Muwombo is like the collection of food, the pile of food, let me say, the pile of the matoke. So what would happen as you eat and finish, they would ask you, do you want more? And if you wanted more, they would get some more matoke, put it on your kawuwa, give you more soup if you needed it. And that's how they used to eat. So eating in Buganda was communal, you eat as you're talking, and I miss it. I miss it so much. And that's my story.
Thank you, Enid, for sharing so much with us. I hope this introduction opens ways for even more recollections of more food stories. If you enjoyed these stories and you have a delicious food story you would love to share or know someone that does, don't hesitate to reach out to me via email at akitcheniniuganda@gmail.com or on Instagram at akitcheninuganda. See you in the next episode.